winning blueprint presents.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Luke. Thank you for joining me. It is Thursday, and I am losing my voice. I am holding on to what I have left of my voice. I really conked out on me yesterday, but I'm going to push through and persevere. Look, this show stops for no man. And so this show must go on. And so I'm going to get through this, even if I have to whisper. Even if I have to whisper to you, we will get it done. That is for sure. So, a lot to get to. We are 4 days away, officially 4 days away from the Super Bowl. The countdown begins now. Now it's becoming real. You're 4 days away. And so we will start counting down the days until the Super Bowl. We're 4 days away. And a lot to get to. Again, you'll get my predictions on the game itself tomorrow on this program. So join me tomorrow when we talk about the Super Bowl and who I think will win. And I'll give you some analysis and a breakdown of what I think is going to occur in this game. But today, more comments from some of the players and the fallout from some of the comments from some of the players. And so we'll get to some of that a little bit later. We have other news in the National Football League that I want to get to briefly and move on. Some of it, things that happened on the field and things that are actually related to football. Others, not so much. Let's start with that. Let's start with the other news. And I'm not a big off the field, irrelevant story guy. You know how I feel about the media and how they always try to spin everything into a huge story. Well, this is a story that for a lot of years hasn't been a story, and I feel like shouldn't be a story. It's his personal business. There's a lesson to be learned from this story, though, and that's why I brought it up. That's the only reason I'm talking about it, because I'm a guy that likes to see lessons be learned, and hopefully someone will be able to learn their lesson from this story. It's been reported today that Dan Marino has a child, of course, out of wedlock, with a production assistant working at CBS, or was working at CBS at the time. I'm not sure if she still works there or not. Frankly, if Dan Marino is your baby's daddy, you don't have to work at CBS anymore. And he's still married to his wife, who he's been married to for over 25 years. And so apparently she knows about it. She's okay, and they're still together. They have 6 children together. So Dan really screwed up on this one. But I will give him credit for standing up, being a stand-up guy, stepping up to the plate, admitting he made a mistake, and stepping up and paying the child support, taking care of the woman that he impregnated and the child that came from that pregnancy. And so he's stood up and did the right thing in this situation. It's going to cost him, but again, when you make mistakes, you have to pay for your mistakes. Everything happens for a reason. And so this may have happened so that someone else can learn from Dan Marino's mistake. And the lesson to be learned here is keep it in your pants, especially when you are married. There's no reason for you to stray. And guys really get a label for being dogs and straying and this and that. There are a lot of faithful husbands out there. Of course, as we see, Dan Marino is not one of them, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're not here to attack Dan Marino. I'm here to tell you that all it takes is one mistake to change your whole life. And this wasn't a life-altering mistake that Dan Marino made. He made a mistake. He's paying for that mistake. He will be paying for that mistake for at least another 11 years. And not to say that this child is a mistake. I don't call children mistakes. Everything happens for a reason. But the fact that he had a child with someone other than his wife while being married to his current wife is a mistake in itself. The action and the act of doing it was a mistake. The result from his act is not a mistake. And that's the birth of a child. But to get back to my point, making a mistake, one costly mistake, can change your life forever. And we're not just talking about sports here. This is a life learned lesson here. We're talking about one instance, a second, a minute, 1 hour can change your life forever. You need not look any further than going to your closest local jail or penitentiary and talking to some people and figuring out, why are you here? And in an instant, their lives changed. And so you have to be cognizant of the decisions that you make in life. If you learn nothing else from Dan Marino in this instance, take this from this situation. A, keep it in your pants. If that's not your wife, you shouldn't be poking into anything. B, be very cautious of the decisions that you make. One mistake can change your life forever. As Dan Marino has found out, he's paying child support now until this child turns 18. And there's nothing he can do about it. He's doing the right thing, but again, this could have been avoided if he would have made the right decision. And so, hopefully you out there understand that this isn't about Dan Marino and his infidelity. I'm past that. That's his private life. I'm not one to probe into that. Take from this story what I'm trying to get you to understand. You have to make rational decisions and choices, and you have to realize that one mistake can change everything. So if you learn nothing else from Dan Marino in this situation, is that you have to make sure you make smart decisions. Make the right decision. And if you make a mistake, you can also learn this from Dan Marino. Own up to it and do the right thing. Saw a story based out of Carolina that I felt like really got my attention because I had talked about this on various programs, on this very program itself, and so felt like I needed to bring it up now that it's come to the forefront. Steve Smith was talking about how he was pleased with the decision of the Carolina Panthers front office to promote within for the offensive coordinator position. Mike Shula was given the opportunity to be the new Carolina Panthers offensive coordinator in wake of Rod Chazinski getting a head coaching job in Cleveland. And so Steve Smith was just voicing how pleased he was with the decision because, in his words, he didn't want to have to start over. And I think that is so true. In the National Football League, all too often, we see coaches be fired, coordinators move on, as in this case, get a head coaching gig. Someone else comes in, they bring in their new philosophy, and everything changes, whether it's on defense, whether it's on offense. You have a new scheme, and it really doesn't affect the defense as much as it does the offense. When you have a young quarterback, as in this case, Cam Newton, you want to keep everything the same for as long as you possibly can. The more familiar a quarterback becomes with the playbook and everything that it entails, the more likely they are to be successful. It's so much easier to play when you don't have to think as much. When the play X jet slot right 57, 2 jets later is called, it's great if Cam Newton can visualize the play and know exactly where everyone on that play is going to be, when they're going to be there, and what he should be looking for from the defense. He can be proactive in this case instead of being reactive. He can be proactive because he knows exactly where everyone's going to be on that particular play, on that particular route. Versus having a new offensive coordinator, having to think, having to process what the play call is, then having to think, where are all my guys? Where are my checkdowns? When you've been in an offense for 4, 5 seasons, you know where all the checkdowns are. You know where guys are supposed to be. You know what looks you're going to get from calling this play. and you know where to attack it. When you have a new system in place, everything changes, the terminology changes, the plays change. All of a sudden now you have to think a little bit more. Things don't come as naturally to you, and so the process starts all over again. It's almost like you're a rookie in the National Football League all over again. And so when you see quarterbacks that come into the league struggle because they've had 5 offensive coordinators in 6 seasons, there's merit to that. Jason Campbell is one that comes to mind when you think about a guy who had various offensive coordinators over, the course of a short amount of time. It's hard for that person to adjust. It's hard for that person to gain any continuity because they're always switching offensive philosophies. Same thing with Alex Smith early in his career in San Francisco. There was a new offensive coordinator every time you look. And when that happens, it's tough for the quarterback, especially when you've already got all of this attention swirling around you because you were a high draft pick, like a Alex Smith. And so everyone is looking for you to provide quick dividends. They want a quick turnaround. They want to see that draft pick pay off rather quickly. And when you keep getting new coordinators over and over again, it's hard for you to build that continuity. And so I thought it was huge by the Carolina Panthers to just promote within. And they did it because they thought Mike Shula had a lot to do with that second half resurgence of the Panthers, mainly Cam Newton, who played his best football of the season in the latter stages of the season. And they think a lot of that had to do with Mike Shula, and so they wanted to keep that going into the 2013 season. And I think that was a very smart move on their part. And you have to keep in mind, too, Steve Smith, the one who made these comments, he's a seasoned veteran. There's no time for rebuilding. There's no time for starting over in Steve Smith's mind. I don't have time. I'm running out of time. I'm on borrowed time as it is. I need this thing to keep going in the right direction. If we start over, that's grounds for me to quit. That's grounds for me to retire, go home to my family, and watch football on Sundays from the comfort of my own home in my couch instead of from the sidelines or on the field. So I get where Steve Smith is coming from. At this point in his career, I don't want to start over. Let's just keep doing what we were doing and become better at it so that we can start to become one of the better teams in the league instead of starting all over from scratch, giving this young quarterback something else to think about instead of having him improve on the things that he already knows. So I thought that was huge on the part of the Carolina Panthers, and I thought it was a great statement by Steve Smith. So as we've been doing right around this time all week, time to go out of media row. Mike's up. Today we will start with the San Francisco 49ers, and we've been talking about the 49ers a lot this week because they've been having the more interesting dialogue, it seems like. And a lot of it has been coming from this man, Randy Moss. Good old Randy Moss. Randy Moss. Randy had some more interesting things to say. And again, he's not someone that talks a lot. So when he does speak, people listen. They take notes. And they listen very attentively because Randy doesn't say much. But when he does, there's usually something at least noteworthy and quote-worthy coming out of his mouth. And again, he did it. He did it again. Randy said he was blackballed in Tennessee 2 years ago when he left the league for a season and came back and played with the 49ers this season. Before then, he was blackballed by the Titans, who picked him up off of waivers after he was released by the Minnesota Vikings. And he can't explain why. He said that there was some animosity between him and the coaches. He didn't do anything to anyone. They just didn't like him. He made sure to make mention that it wasn't Jeff Fisher's doing, but someone was doing it, and he couldn't explain why. He wasn't given the opportunity to make plays. He wasn't getting a chance. He said they were going out of their way to make sure that he didn't succeed in Tennessee. And the reason why they claimed him off of waivers, he can't tell you because they never had any intention of really using him to his fullest potential in his mind. And he said he won't give you any more because he dropped another, not a bombshell, because anyone with a brain could see this one coming. He said, I won't give you everything. You'll have to read my book. So, yep, you heard it here. Randy Moss will have a book probably about 4 years after he retires. Just when you thought it was safe to come out of that Randy Moss closet, because Randy Moss was finished, he was done, you haven't heard from him in a while, he's going to drop a book right on your head that's going to have a lot of quotes in it, a lot of things that may be far-fetched, a lot of things that might be hard to believe, a lot of things that are probably true, and it's going to have a lot of juicy stuff in it. Trust and believe. Randy Moss is a guy that when he does speak, he speaks his mind, and so I wouldn't be surprised if this book really ruffled some feathers around the National Football League. But it'll be interesting nonetheless when it does hit shelves. Who knows when it will be? It could be 5 years, it could be 7 years from now, but trust me, Randy Moss will get another payday when he's done playing football, and it'll come via his autobiography. Also, in San Francisco 49ers news, Chris Culliver made headlines when he said what probably 97% of the NFL feels, that they would not welcome a gay player in their locker room. That's not national news. That's not something that's alarming to anyone. That's not surprising to any of you out there. That's how most NFL players feel. Some of them say it, others keep it to themselves, but at the end of the day, the majority of them feel that way. I once did a paper on that very subject, and it wasn't just football, though. It was just sports in general, and that paper drew so much commentary from all my classmates. The professor chimed in. It was a really hot button topic at the time. It was a lightning rod for discussion, and that was probably my favorite paper to write of all the papers I've ever written in my life. I had so much fun doing it because it strikes a chord with so many people. And I tell you what, we know that athletes are so macho. They're oozing with machismo. And they're not going to want to see something that makes them feel less of a man. They don't want to see another guy in their locker room because, again, birds of a feather flock together. Guilty by association. These are all things that people think in their mind when someone is associated with their franchise, with their team, with their locker room. Hey, such and such is gay. Well, if he's gay and he's in that locker room, what does that make such and such or so or the rest of those guys? They want to distance themselves from that. And so it's going to be a cold day in hell before someone comes out as a current player in the National Football League. I can't speak for other sports, but mainly in the NFL where it's such a macho and violent game, you'd be hard-pressed to see someone come out as a current player and admit that they're gay. I just don't see how that could be productive for them. And it's a shame because, honestly, no one should have to keep that kind of, I don't want to call it baggage, but no one should have to keep that kind of burden on their chest for the duration of their career. What if you have a 15-year career? How hard must it be to have to keep that inside for 15 years? Tough. Most guys who are gay don't last long in their sports for that very reason, because they're keeping a facade up. They're showing you a different side of them, one that really doesn't exist, because they don't want you to know who they really are. And it's hard to put on a face for your locker room and then go home and have a totally different life. It's hard to keep up with those double lives. It's hard to do. And so most guys flame out who are gay. They can't last 10 years in the NFL, 10 years in the NBA, because it's too tough to put on that mask every day and then go home and finally exhale. It's too tough. And so I just found the topic fascinating because it brought me back to my thesis that I wrote. But nonetheless, let's get back to why I was brought up in the first place. Chris Culliver said it. And of course, we knew a lot of this topic would be around because Ian Badejo, the linebacker for the Ravens, Brendan Ian Badejo, is an advocate for same-sex marriages, and he spoke on this topic at great lengths, and so we knew that was going to be a topic of discussion on Super Bowl week when the media had a chance to talk. And so, of course, like I said, the media is going to pick and probe at things, and so, of course, they were going to find the right person to ask that they figured they might get a response out of, and they found their dummy in Chris Culliver. I'm pretty sure more than one person was asked a question of that nature, and most guys probably gave the politically correct answer. But there's always one dummy, one guy you can find that's going to say the wrong thing. Even though he felt this way, which I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys that were asked this very same question felt the same way, you don't answer this question in a way that's going to put any negative light on you or cast any negative light on your franchise. Again, gotta know what to say out of your mouth, when to say it, and how to say it. Again, to me, this is a non-issue because I don't think there'll be a gay player to come out while being a current player in the league in my lifetime. It may happen one day. I just don't think it'll be in my lifetime. So we finally find ourselves talking about the Ravens. And we're talking about Joe Flacco again. Joe Flacco. Reports out of Baltimore are, look, there's nothing to talk about. Move on. There's nothing to see here. Flacco will get a deal done in Baltimore. And we all know this. In the NFL, when's the last time you saw a quarterback that was of any note, that was any good, be allowed to walk away from his team and not be given franchise QB money? When's the last time that happened? When a guy that was actually good, that you could see being a Pro Bowler for many years to come, his rookie deal is up. Time for you to re-up on this quarterback, and you just say, you know what? You're asking for too much money. We're not going to pay you. Look for work elsewhere. When does that ever happen in the National Football League? Much like left tackles in the National Football League, quarterbacks are prized commodities. You get a good one, you can't let him out of your sight for 2 seconds because someone will snatch him up just as fast as you can turn your head back around. You take your eyes off of him, and he's gone. And so quarterbacks, left tackles, game-changing defensive end or rush outside linebackers, maybe a prized cornerback, are among the positions in the National Football League that are irreplaceable, and that if you get a good one, you got to lock him up. Most times, teams don't let those players at those positions walk away. How many times have we seen a Hall of Fame left tackle start his career with one franchise, end his career with the same franchise? Happens all the time. Now, quarterbacks, they usually play somewhere else because the team that drafted them realizes we need to move on, and that quarterback isn't ready to give it up yet. And so he feels like, I got some more left in the tank. I'm going to prove it to you. And so he goes and plays somewhere else. We saw it with Joe Montana. We saw it with Joe Namath. We saw it with a lot of Hall of Fame quarterbacks that you really couldn't envision in another uniform, but they went elsewhere anyway because that's what guys who still have something left, who still feel like they can get it done and feel like they have something to prove against all the naysayers, do. They go and play somewhere else, like a Brett Favre. And so Joe Flacco isn't going anywhere is what I'm basically saying. They're going to re-sign him, and Steve Bisciotti basically said, trust in Ozzie Newsome. He'll get it done. So there's no worries. There's no doubts. If you're a Ravens fan, put your mind at ease. Joe Flacco will be your quarterback for the next 10 years. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing for you. I know that I feel like that's a great thing for you, but a lot of Baltimore Ravens fans, they're so fickle. They've been asking for Joe Flacco's head on a platter since he's been enshrined as their quarterback. And I don't understand the logic there, but hopefully this run to the Super Bowl quiets all of that noise and allows everyone to take a step back and realize Joe Flacco is the man in Baltimore. And that's going to do it for today's program. Throw it up. It's a touchdown. That's right. Throw it up. We're going to tack on this quick. Extra point. Last week on the program, we talked about Donald Driver, the longtime Green Bay Packers wide receiver, contemplating hanging his cleats up. Well, today he announced officially that he's done. He's going to retire. And I saw this one coming. The writing was on the wall in Green Bay. Donald Driver basically had to beg for special teams duty just to get on the field. That's no way for a guy that's been so productive in his career to go out. And so I knew that was it for Donald Driver. There was reports that the Vikings were interested. But if you're a Green Bay Packer at heart, you don't want to play with another franchise. You have to feel like, look, I don't want to betray the people that for so long have been cheering my name. If he went and played for Minnesota, there's some people in Green Bay that would never forgive Donald Driver. And if you're Donald Driver, you've worked too hard to build a legacy in Green Bay to have it tarnished by you playing one season in Minnesota. No reason to do that. Hang it up. Be beloved in Green Bay. Have ceremonies. Have your number retired in 6 or 7 years to a rousing ovation. See your number and your name posted up in the Wall of Fame in Green Bay. No need to tarnish any of that. So, congratulations to Donald Driver on a spectacular career. I saw this one coming, and it's good for him. I think that he's a guy that probably could still get it done in the league, get you 60 grabs for over 700 yards and be ultra productive. But at this point, the Packers have already moved on, and it's probably time for Donald Driver to move on as well. So congratulations to Donald Driver on an excellent career. And who knows, we may see him in the near future doing some broadcasting. He's a guy that I feel like he has the face for TV. I don't know about him speaking. I never really have watched Donald Driver talk that often, but we'll see. We probably haven't seen the last of Donald Driver. And that'll do it for today's program. Thank you for joining me here in the lab room. Got to a lot today. Tomorrow is going to be a huge day here in the lab room, as it's going to be our last program before the Super Bowl. I don't know. I might be feeling frisky enough to post something the day of the Super Bowl. I doubt it. Highly unlikely, but you never know. And so there's many ways to contact or view the show. There's Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Like it. There's YouTube. Louis T is the YouTube page. Subscribe. There is Twitter. At In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. And there's also the inbox, which is inthelabroom@gmail.com. Directly, that is the most efficient way to contact me. And if you use any one of those social media sites to access any of my programs or to send me a message, it'll come straight to the inbox anyhow. So thank you for joining me today. Stay tuned for the lab follow-up. Today, we will be talking about the 19th team to select in the 2013 draft, the New York Football Giants. Stay tuned for that as well. Want to see you back here, same time, same place, and as always, have a good one. Take care. See you tomorrow here in the lab